I never meant for this to happen. You know how things start innocently enough, right? 1 minute, you're just trying to get through the day, and the next, you're in the middle of something you can't explain. That's how it was with her. It all started when I began driving for Uber. I needed to keep busy after the breakup, honestly. Sitting around at home, staring at the same walls, wasn't working anymore. So, I started driving at night, mostly to clear my head. It was peaceful, quiet, and the roads, especially late at night, have a way of making you feel like the whole world's asleep, leaving you with nothing but your thoughts. That's when I started to feel like I could breathe again. I wasn't looking for anything, but then one night I got this ping. It was a strange location, out near the river trail on the edge of town. I wasn't familiar with the area, but it wasn't far, so I figured, why not? I drove out there. No big deal. But when I pulled up, she was standing there. She didn't sit in the front like most people. She just got in the back. I didn't think much of it. It was dark, the streetlights were flickering a little, and honestly, I was too tired to care. "Where to?" I asked, looking at her through the rearview mirror. "The river trail," she said, her voice quiet, like it belonged to someone who didn't speak much. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but I should have known. That was the night everything changed. For the next few weeks, it became a regular thing. Same time, same place, same woman. She never sat up front, always in the back seat. She never said much, but when she did speak, it was like she already knew things about me, things I hadn't told anyone. At first, I chalked it up to coincidence. Maybe she'd overheard something or had a way of reading me. But it went beyond that. I remember one night she told me, "You're still holding on to something. It's like you want to move on, but there's something holding you back." I didn't tell her about my breakup. She just knew. And the way she said it, it was like she could see straight through me. I felt exposed, vulnerable, but I couldn't help it. It was comforting, in a way. Like she understood everything I was going through, even though we'd never spoken about it. The strangest part? I started to look forward to our rides. I didn't know her name, but she didn't need one. Her presence, her quiet, poetic way of speaking, was enough. But even then, something didn't sit right. I started wondering about her. I tried looking for her outside of the rides. I searched on social media, asked a few people if they knew who she was. I even tried picking her up from different locations, thinking maybe I'd get lucky and catch her outside of the usual routine. But it never worked. She only appeared when the app pinged me at exactly the same time and place. Then, one night, I found something in the back seat. A silver locket. It had an old photograph inside. It was of her. But it wasn't like the photos of her I'd seen before. This one was old, like from another time. The edges were curled, and the photo itself looked like it had been taken with a Polaroid. The date on the back was even stranger. 1987. I stared at it for what felt like hours. I didn't know what to think. I couldn't stop myself from going to the river trail the next day. I didn't know why. I just had this feeling that I needed to. I followed the path down to the water, past the trees and the overgrown weeds, until I came across a small plaque hidden behind some ivy. The photo on the plaque was unmistakable. It was her, the same woman. Sarah Hayes, in loving memory of Sarah Hayes, 1968 to 1987. May she find peace where the water meets the earth. I couldn't breathe. I felt dizzy. It didn't make sense. She was dead. But I'd been picking her up. She was sitting in my back seat, night after night. How could that be? I tried to stop driving after that. I turned off the app, put the whole thing out of my mind. But every night, I found myself checking it. I couldn't help it. And just like that, she pinged for a ride again. Same time, same place. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to see her again. But I couldn't stop myself. So I drove. When I picked her up, she was quieter than usual. She seemed more distant, like something had changed. She asked for one last ride, toward the river. And that's when things got strange. As we drove, everything around us started to feel off. The fog rolled in thick, too thick for that time of night. The air was still, like the world was holding its breath. And then, she did something she'd never done before. She leaned forward, her hand reaching out to touch my shoulder. "I was never supposed to feel anything again," she whispered. "But with you, I did." Before I could even say a word, she was gone. Just gone. One moment, she was there. The next, she wasn't. The backseat was empty. There wasn't even a sign she had ever been there. I haven't seen her since, not once. But every night, I still check the app. She never pings. But the locket? It's still in my glove box. Sometimes, when I'm driving, I hear her voice. Just faintly, like she's still there, in the back seat. Sometimes I dream about her. She's sitting there, looking out the window, lost in thought. Silent, waiting. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know if she's still out there, if I'll ever pick her up again. But I can't shake the feeling that she's not gone. Maybe she never will be. So, if you ever get a ping at night, especially from a place that doesn't feel quite right, don't go. Just don't. Not every passenger is from this world. And some rides, they don't end when the trip's over. I work part-time as an Uber driver, mostly nights. It's a simple gig, just to pay the bills. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, so I'm used to the quiet, the solitude of driving through empty streets. There's something about nighttime that changes everything. The world feels different when the sun goes down. The streets get quieter, like the city itself is holding its breath. People get strange at night, too. I've picked up all sorts, business types, drunks, the occasional weirdo, but for the most part, it's uneventful, boring even. And that's how I liked it. Just me, the road, and the hum of my car's engine. That night, though, it was anything but boring. It started like any other ride, but it ended like a warning. I can't explain it, but something in the air that night was off, and I didn't notice until it was too late. I was driving around the outskirts of town, near the edge where the streets start to thin out, when I got a ping. I wasn't expecting much, maybe a quick trip downtown, but the address was strange. I'd never heard of it before, and when I pulled it up on the map, there was nothing. No street, no location, just a blank spot. I thought maybe it was a glitch. These things happen sometimes, but it felt wrong, you know? Still, I was out there. I needed the ride. So I followed the GPS, and after a few minutes of winding through narrow, dark streets, I found myself driving into the middle of nowhere. The place I arrived at was, well, nothing. There were no houses, no lights, nothing. Just a stretch of dark road, lined with trees, and an old street light that flickered like it was about to go out. That's when I saw him. He was standing by the side of the road, just staring at me. He was tall, way too tall, and pale like he hadn't seen the sun in years. He was wearing this old wool coat, the kind people don't wear anymore, especially not at this hour. I remember thinking he looked out of place, like he didn't belong in the world I knew. But I didn't think too much of it at first. I thought maybe he was just some lost soul out there in the middle of nowhere. I rolled down the window and he slid into the back seat without a word. No hello or thanks for the ride. Just silence. His presence in the car felt different, like the air itself was thicker with him there. He didn't speak right away, just stared straight ahead, like he wasn't really there with me. Finally, I broke the silence, trying to be polite. "Where to?" he answered in this deep, calm voice, like he was reading from some kind of script. "Elmsworth Lane," he said. "Just past the woods." I didn't know where Elmsworth Lane was, but I typed it into the GPS anyway. I got the address, sort of. It showed up on the screen, but it was vague, fuzzy. I couldn't make sense of it. It was almost like it didn't really exist. I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "You sure that's the right place?" He didn't respond right away, just stared out the window again. But then, he turned his head slightly toward me, and his eyes, his eyes. They were so cold, empty, like he wasn't even seeing me. "Have you ever felt like you've been somewhere before?" he asked, his voice low. "But you know you haven't?" I didn't know how to respond to that. It sounded so wrong. But I didn't want to seem weird, so I just nodded and said, "I guess, yeah. You know, like déjà vu or whatever." He didn't say anything after that, just stared out the window again. And that's when the feeling hit me. The feeling that something wasn't right. Something about this guy, about this ride, was completely off. The air in the car felt heavier, like the weight of the world was pressing down on us. I tried to shake it off, but then the GPS started acting up. The screen flickered, and suddenly we were miles away from where we were supposed to be. I glanced at the map, trying to figure it out, but the roads weren't right. The streets didn't match the ones I knew, and I was starting to feel lost. "Everything all right?" I asked, trying to make small talk. He didn't answer at first, but then, in that same calm, formal voice, he said, "You lived on Willow Street when you were 5, didn't you? Your mother had that little blue sedan, the one that broke down every other week." I froze. I hadn't thought about Willow Street in years. How did he know that? Nobody knew that. Nobody knew about my mum's old car. It wasn't something I'd talked about in a long time. How could he know that? I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just kept driving, trying to keep my cool, but my hands were shaking, and I felt like the air had gotten colder. The car was too quiet, and then, as if to make it worse, the Bluetooth speaker crackled to life. But there was no music, no call, just static and faint whispers. I turned the volume down, but the static didn't stop. It got louder, like someone was speaking just outside the car. I tried to ignore it, but it felt like it was coming from inside my own head. Suddenly, I glanced in the rearview mirror again, and I swear to you, I saw it. For just a split second, the back seat was empty. He wasn't there. I blinked and looked again, and there he was, staring at me, like he'd never moved. But it wasn't just that. It was wrong. He didn't look like he was sitting in the car. He looked like he was standing, but the reflection didn't line up. The reflection was wrong. I almost slammed on the brakes. My heart was pounding, but I didn't want to freak out. I just wanted to get the hell out of there. I tried to end the ride early, to pull over, but when I looked back at him, he wasn't even looking at me anymore. He was staring out the window again, like he wasn't even aware of me. "We're almost there," he said, in that same soft, almost detached voice. You just have to see it. I don't know what possessed me, but I kept driving, and we drove and drove until we ended up in this neighborhood I'd never seen before. It was decaying. The houses were boarded up, the street lights were flickering, and there was no one around. It was like we were in a ghost town. And then he told me to stop. I didn't want to. I really didn't. But I stopped the car in front of one of the houses. I didn't recognize it at first, but then I looked closer. It was exactly like my childhood home. The same faded blue paint, the same old porch. Everything about it screamed familiarity. It was my house, the one I thought I'd forgotten, but I didn't tell him that. He turned to me before getting out of the car. "It's important that you remember this place," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "You'll be coming back." And then he was gone. I didn't even wait. I floored it out of there. I drove faster than I've ever driven before, not caring where I was going, just needing to get away. When I checked my app after I dropped him off, there was no record of the ride, no fare, no history. It was like it had never happened. But that's not where the weirdness ended. The next morning I woke up to a notification, a review from him. Driver was punctual, will ride again, soon. I've been a wreck ever since. I haven't driven since that night. I don't know if I ever will. Every time I go out in public, I feel like I see him. His face, just in the corner of my eye, always watching, always there. And then, a few days ago, I got another notification. "You have a pickup." The address? Elmsworth Lane. It wasn't in my history, but it was there on the screen. The same place. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I can tell you this. If you ever get a ping from a street that doesn't show up on your map, don't accept it. Don't. Not every passenger belongs to this world. And if you do, well, you might never drive home again.